Shun Uruma was an innocent boy before he was preyed upon by 5 bullies who nicknamed him Test Subject A. He is a kind-hearted high school boy whose parents were killed and younger brother hospitalized by the same bullies when he was only 12 years old, leading him down a path of vengeance on the 5, determined to make all of them suffer by using the training he received from his ex-military grandfather. Shun is a young man of average stature with a slender yet muscular build, spiky black hair, and dark red eyes which seem to become darker voids whenever he's annoyed or feeling animosity toward someone. He is said to be quite handsome by other characters in the series. As a child, Shun was a kind and timid boy who loved animals and showed a genuine care and respect for life. Unfortunately, this made him a target for bullying. In particular, his own personal bullies took an interest in him and wanted to test how far they could push and corner him before he committed suicide. Despite all of this, he never gave in, showcasing an incredibly strong will. However, after the orchestrated deaths of his parents and the hospitalization of his brother, Shun was finally driven over the edge and consumed by grief and rage. 4 years after training under his grandfather with the intention on killing all 5 of his bullies, Shun has become withdrawn and antisocial but is quite shy when it comes to girls. Although thirsting to exact his revenge on them, Shun was initially open to the idea of sparing the 5 bullies if any of them had changed for the better. However, he soon abandons this notion of mercy after coming to the realization they'll never show remorse for their actions and were totally irredeemable. When acting out his revenge, Shun is calm and collected, never showing his emotions even when taunted about his family's fate. He shows absolutely no hesitation when torturing his bullies, even when they plead and beg. Regardless, he isn't the type to involve innocent people unless they get in his way, showcasing this by telling Azuma Chizuru that he'd kill her if she didn't keep quiet about the grotesque murder of Senkouji Katsumi. However, he still shows empathy and kindness, even vomiting after seeing what happened to Kaname Shirakawa. Not surprisingly, Shun has a far more wrathful side to him, as shown during his beating at the clutches of Kyuga's hands in Chapter 56. Upon giving up hope, his desire to kill Kaya Shigoku has enabled him to not only jump away from Kyuga before cutting the ropes off him, but also immediately attack Kyuga before the bigger man could anticipate his moves, as Shun uses a brick to smash the bigger monster's face and even continued long after he'd finally died, showing that his anger and hatred for them after all they'd put him through runs much deeper than initially shown. Shun Uruma was trained by his grandfather, who explains that he was a part of the infamous Kitayama Corps in the military, where he was taught to efficiently kill and was trained in martial arts. He told Uruma that if he wanted to enact true revenge, he would teach him how to do it correctly. Uruma agrees, and for the next 4 years, he used all the knowledge he had to train Uruma. The type of martial arts his grandpa seemed to teach him would be judo mostly. In his fight with Kyuga, Uruma used a spin technique learned from grandpa to escape any judo throw, even Kyuga's, who has a grip strength of 180 kilograms. He also learned other style of self-defense techniques showcased when he saves Azuma from an attacker wielding a knife by easily throwing him to the ground and disarming him. Uruma also knows disarticulation, which is the separation of bones from joints. He used this in his fight with the 6'9" Gano by dislocating his shoulder using one of his grandpa's special moves called detachment, which focuses on weak points of the body for bigger opponents with a lot of muscle mass. But the move comes with a lot of risk because the user, who is much smaller, has to get closer to the bigger opponent, and if the user fails to complete the move, it can result in losing the fight. Uruma has subsonic faster than eye speed that has been shown multiple times through the series. First shown when he was able to save Azuma by blitzing and kicking her attacker before he even noticed Uruma coming, also using a judo throw to throw and disarm him faster than anyone could see, including Azuma, who didn't realize he came to save her until after. He reached this speed again when he freed himself from being tied up by Katsumi and blitzed him before anyone saw, before torturing then killing him. In his fight Kyuga, Uruma reacted subsonically after Kyuga threw a punch at him, then he dodges it at point blank range, confusing Kyuga, realizing he wasn't in the spot he threw him to, but behind him, brushing himself off with no damage. Shun Uruma has peak human lifting strength, but his strength causes a lot of controversy around fans who can't really scale his strength accurately. While training, Uruma was tasked with pulling a tree out of the ground to improve the strength of his judo throws before facing the powerhouse known as Kyuga. The weight of an average 20 feet pine is 1,000 pounds. Although the feat was successfully done and he pulled the tree from the roots of the ground, it took him a while to actually do it, and he also never lifted the tree like many believe. He actually pulled and pulled, then once uprooted he let it fall onto his shoulders for a quick second, then dropped it. Not enough evidence to say he can lift trees, it will due to how long it took him to lift it. He also was still unable to throw Kyuga initially and needed to catch him off guard before successfully slamming him on his face. His best lifting feat is when he strangled Anze by lifting him in the air after discovering him beating Kyuga to death. He also couldn't free himself from the grasp of Uruma's new henchman to save his brother Kakeru from getting his leg cut off after his loss. Uruma has street-level attack potency with the possibility of being wall-level. He is a formidable striker, being able to take down bigger opponents. Although there is a limit to the size of opponents he can hurt with his strikes, he still has techniques that make up for wherever his striking lacks. As shown in his fight with Gano, Uruma was unable to hurt him with punches, which forced him to use the detachment technique, dislocating his opponent's left shoulder. Uruma has built up a huge pain tolerance from his many years of being bullied, making him insanely durable in fights. He has control over almost all 68 joints in his body, meaning if he was to get in a fight with a submission wrestler, none of the holds would have effect of Uruma due to how he can control all of his joints. There is also not a single way he can be tied up that he can't escape from. He was shot by airsoft guns, forced to eat dirt, poop and other disgusting things. Also hit his head very hard on a rock. He also has a strong mentality to be able to deal with being bullied for years, still going home every day with a smile on his face, hiding the pain he held internally. Also his parents dying, and his brother being comatose. Even as the bullies antagonized Uruma about his family dying, Uruma never lost his composure. After belligerently killing Kyuga after getting beaten to near death and nearly raped, Shun was close to a mental breakdown stemming from an obsessive drive to finish his mission and kill Kaya Shigoku. After being discovered over Kyuga's corpse by Anze Zenichi, Shun proceeds to lift and strangle him to death, terrified of the idea of being arrested before he had the chance to kill Shigoku, breaking his vow to kill innocent people. However, this also shows that Shun is perfectly willing to face the repercussions, but only after he finishes off Shigoku, as the latter has proven to be far too dangerous to let live. After Kyuga's death, Uruma has grown increasingly distant due to the guilt for Anna's death as well as killing Anze Zenichi. He tries to cut off all connections with his friends so that they will not have to be collateral damage. He also begins to embrace the idea of having to become as evil as Kaya in order to kill him. However, deep down, it's shown that he is still mortally terrified of Kaya after the latter confronted him for the first time in 4 years. Despite this, he still vows to kill him no matter what. His only weakness seems to be his younger brother, who was kidnapped by Kaya and his new group of underlings who call themselves the Revolutionary Club. Uruma is forced to play a weird torture version of rock, paper, scissors, which results in his young brother losing limbs every time he loses a match. Uruma almost loses his composure after the first round but stays calm long enough for his grandfather to appear. Torturing was the main focus of Uruma's training with his grandfather. Not just physical torture but mental torture as well. Uruma wants to break his targets down to their lowest to get them to admit their true feelings before brutally killing them. He has tortured each of his victims in individually different ways in forms of worse versions of the bullying they gave him. His first victim, Katsumi, used an airsoft gun to shoot Uruma with, so Uruma bought the same exact airsoft gun, then used a military technique called peeling to rip the skin off Katsumi's torso and legs to shoot him with the gun. Katsumi was already mentally weak, so Uruma was unable to break him all the way before he dies. Ashiro was the second bully to be tortured by Uruma, in which he used the Pair of Anguish, which is a torture device from medieval Europe. Uruma shoved up Ashiro's asshole and let Ashiro's then girlfriend shove the smaller device to Ashiro's penis tip. Then pulls a lever, causing the device to spread wide while inside, causing severe and permanent damage. It is revealed Ashiro kidnapped his own girlfriend, then repeatedly raped her due to his possessive nature and sick thoughts, which made her an easy person for Uruma to manipulate, which is who Uruma used to break Ashiro mentally before his death. But she was already broken, so she ends up killing herself after doing what she done to Ashiro, leaving them both lying dead in a pool of blood. This is the first time an innocent life is taken in front of Uruma. Madoka was the third target, and he honestly got it as bad as Kyuga, if not worse. Uruma used a device called the rack, a device that stretches the skin and bones of the arms and legs after being tied to a turn wheel and turning it repeatedly. Madoka is a religious freak who worships Kaya Shigoku as his god, so to mentally torture him, Uruma told Madoka he is going through an exorcism. Uruma made a Kaya mask and talked his grandfather to use it and used hallucination liquids to confuse Madoka into thinking Kaya was torturing him, forcing him to hit his breaking point and accept that Kaya never cared about him and used him as a crash dummy before his death seconds after. Kyuga was target 4. His torture would be getting eaten alive by carnivorous mantis shrimp. He was placed into a container with water with the shrimp inside. Uruma then sets the container on fire. He thinks to himself that since the shrimp are sensitive to heat, they would eat Kyuga as an attempt to escape. The plan almost works, but Anna saves Kyuga for some odd reason. This results in round 2 of Kyuga vs Uruma, which ended up resulting in Uruma beating Kyuga's skull in with a cinder block. Kaya Shigoku is the only target left who hasn't been tortured and killed, but I'm sure he will be in for the most gruesome, vile, twisted torturing a person could think of.